It's time to criminalise membership and involvement with the World Economic Forum and all of these external bodies for UK nationals. This is something that other people aren't going to talk about, but trust me, it's not completely crazy. I'm going to go through all of the arguments and why I think this will improve governance, defend democracy, and clarify how Britain negotiates in international organisations. Hello everyone, this is Andre Walker. Thanks so much for watching this video. Please do subscribe, but more importantly, hit the bell notification icon. It's the best way to absolutely guarantee you get all my videos as soon as they are released. Well, this annual meeting of the World Economic Forum in Davos is not the only thing that the World Economic Forum does. It brings together officially businesses and politicians, but also it recruits and trains candidates and supports them throughout their political career. Now that, in a sense, is a fine thing to do, except for the fact that a lot of this is done behind closed doors and nobody really fully understands exactly what this organisation is and how it's financed, simply because the World Economic Forum itself will not tell people. But fundamentally, it brings together a group of billionaires and a group of politicians and effectively creates the ultimate in groupthink. Now, that moves, I would suggest, completely and in direct contradiction to democracy. Because if you think about it, we used to call it democracy, now we call it crowdsourcing. But basically, the wisdom of crowds can often be very good because they understand the nuances of their lives and all vote for different reasons. Whereas, of course, if you just have a small group of elite, they tend to only represent the elite themselves. Now, I want to say, first of all, I have no problem with government ministers going to meet other government ministers, going to meet rich people, going to international organisations. That's no problem whatsoever. It's the nature of the relationship with that organisation that I'm concerned about, particularly with the World Economic Forum. Because what they seem to do is summon a group of people that they want to talk to together to tell them what they think about things. And they do come at it from a particular perspective, reduction of population and indeed restriction of resources. They once said that in the future nobody will own anything, but they'll be very happy nonetheless. And so it's about an elite putting their ideas onto people. I want to take you back to just after the Brexit referendum, when we saw Keir Starmer, when we saw John Bercow and others go over to negotiate directly with Michel Barnier. Now, what they were doing was that they were trying to argue for a less good Brexit deal so that we could have a second referendum on Brexit and vote to remain in the European Union. Now, you'll remember, and this is teaching you to suck eggs, how in Ireland voted down the EU a couple of times and they just kept rerunning the referendums until the right side won, which makes the whole thing a complete and total mockery. You'll remember as well when we had the European Constitution, which even the French voted down, and then what we did was we changed the name of the European Constitution to the Lisbon Treaty and put it through anyway, even though the people of Europe had voted against it time and time again. Well, those negotiations would have been illegal in the United States of America. The idea that Bercow, as Speaker of the Parliament, the idea that Keir Starmer, as Leader of the Opposition, could go and undermine the British government was seen as a bad thing had it been in America. In Britain, it's legal, so Bercow and Keir Starmer were not prosecuted, though I personally believe it should have been a crime. But let's now say to ourselves, why do the Americans have that rule in place that you can't negotiate behind the back of the American government on behalf of the American nation? Well, the reason is because actually, if you want to get something done in life, sometimes it's worth speaking with one voice, not on a global level, but as a country. And of course, what happens is you might have a government department which has a particular strategic aim, whether it be included in increasing the amount of mining that we do, whether it be developing Britain's nuclear energy, whatever it is. And then you have one politician who's been chatted up at Davos who is now operating completely differently. So I have no problem with anybody going to Davos. What I would make illegal is going there without proper civil servants, without public scrutiny, without a list of who you've met. All of these things that are deemed absolutely vital. Why do these people have to sit in rooms with the door locked, having discussions about the future of our world? Why is it that Klaus Schwab gets the ability to influence in a way that you or I were not able to influence, even though he's not a UK national? We often talk about the Illuminati and that silly idea of a Freemason to create a Masonic lodge that had all the enlightened people in it in a particular area in order to improve governance. Well, even though the Illuminati was shut down, we're still going on about that idea to this day, because whilst the guy was quite well-meaning, the end result was that it was seen to not subvert democracy because the members of it were particularly bad, but because what they'd done was that they had started discussing really important issues behind closed doors where normal people were excluded. And that was seen as a danger in of itself. Now, we know about the Illuminati simply because it was such a discredited concept that people still believe it exists today and are still going on about it, even though I think it was in northern Italy on the border with Austria and that sort of area. But years ago it disappeared and we're still going on about it. And I think actually when you think about the Illuminati, people did make a reasonable point that it is totally unfair to create a small elite which get to debate things amongst themselves, which get to have groupthink, and then their job is not necessarily to be democratic, but instead to push forward the views that they've already discussed, they've already decided. And you hear people like Keir Starmer saying, where would you rather be, Westminster or Davos? And he says he'd rather be in Davos. That is a dangerous situation because it becomes the job for a politician not to listen to the public and not to do what they want, but rather to agree across the world with a group of elite people and use democracy in order to persuade people to go along with your way of thinking. That is a fundamental flip on its head, and I think it's something that's incredibly dangerous. Now, we can all say that the World Economic Forum has no membership list. We can all say it has no financial disclosure. We can say that lots of people are not allowed to go, and the whole thing is very shady. But actually, it could be completely well-meaning. Everything that the World Economic Forum says about itself could be completely true, and it would still be something that ought to be made illegal to attend in this capacity. Now, if you want to go as a private citizen, if you want to go as a billionaire, that's fine. But I think serving politicians ought to be talking about what they're saying. They ought to be taking proper civil servants along, and it ought not to be a situation where we are, in the end, handing power, creating not a one world government, but a one world discussion forum where you and I are not allowed in. That is dangerous, and it's something that we should take seriously. And it doesn't matter whether you believe in the conspiracy theories or not. The simple concept of doing all this behind the scenes without democratic oversight is dangerous in of itself. I say ban it. Until next time, goodbye.